And with us now is Paul Deutschman. Nice to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Over the years, you have really created a variety of amazing vehicles.
Yeah, for pretty much anything on wheels I've touched on many types of vehicles, ranging from race cars to ambulances and everything in between.
Was this something you knew you wanted to do from an early age?
Yeah, from a very early age. I think the first flash was looking through my parents' Encyclopedia Britannica, and I looked up automobiles, and I saw people doing clay models and drawing cars and magically bringing cars to life. And I think something stuck in that early age.
We all did that as kids. We had model cars, we put them together, we would play with them, but few of us can make a career of it and go on and do it for a living.
Yeah. It's I don't know. I think the feeling is that you had to do this. There was no other option for me. It was the thing I was interested in, and one way or the other, I had to pursue a career in it. So to me, it was very simple. I didn't have to think about what I had to do, and I stayed focused on that.
As a boy growing up in Quebec, were there vehicles around you that fascinated you, and was that part of it?
Yeah, mainly through magazines, because I was born in Arvida, Quebec, which is best known as an aluminum smelting town and a small population. So, yeah, I think it was via magazines more than what I saw on the street, And like I said, when I found out about the business, how cars became reality, I think that was the thing that intrigued me, and thought, well, I've got to seek out that field.
And when you say that you had to seek it out, you really looked for a college where you could launch your career, a college that had both engineering and car design.
Yeah, and that was a key moment, because I really scoured the world for. I was technically oriented, but I was really a designer. Emotionally, I was a designer, but I had a technical strength. So I wanted to carry on in something engineering, but I found a school in England it was called Hatfield Polytechnic, and it's now known as Hertfordshire University. And they actually combined the car design, the creative aspect, with the full engineering degree. So that was it. I made my choice, and it just seemed to be, you don't know a lot when you're at that age, but in retrospect, it was absolutely the right thing.
And you were just honored there recently with a doctorate degree.
Yeah, incredibly, they I guess were tracking my career, and got in touch with me and offered me this amazing award just recently, a couple of weeks ago, and I'm just so grateful and honored that they deemed me fit for that type of award.
So you were about 12 years old when you first started sketching cars, and then you continued, as you say, you went to college knowing this is what you wanted to do. When you were in college, you entered a contest with several hundred other people, and that was a big break for you.
Yeah, that was a telling experience that I think everybody in a profession needs, that kind of reinforcement that they're on the right, that they have some talent in that field. And yeah, there were 550 entrants, and I won first prize, I thought. And I was still at university then. So my design appeared on the cover of a British car magazine, and I thought, yep, this is a good sign.
That's pretty cool.
This isn't going to hurt.
And that was the first of what would be many magazine covers through the years. I think more than 50, and so.
Yeah.
Did that first one open doors for you?
Well, it did, because the course at the Hatfield Polytechnic was part of the course. It wasn't just academic. It was also had industrial training, where you had to go and work in industry. And I worked with Leyland Cars, and I literally started on the assembly lines at the beginning of the training program. And the magazine cover was my passport to get into the styling department, which was the temple for me. That was really, I couldn't believe within the 4 years I was studying, I was working with these people these magicians, and yeah, it was a fabulous experience.
And did you see yourself staying with that company and working your way up with that company, or did something inside you say, I'm going to do this but on my own?
Well, that's a good question. What happened was I was all set to stay in England and make my career there. And then I came back to Montreal on a holiday, a short visit, and a couple of things happened. One was I found out that there was a local design company looking for a chief designer for a taxi vehicle, and so there was a job opening, and I met my wife, and so that, although it was a very difficult decision to make because I had opportunities on both sides of the Atlantic, and but I decided to stay in Montreal.
And after that first project, you continued to design cars. It wasn't, I would have loved to have continued to design race cars and speedsters, but
nobody comes knocking at your door saying we need a car design. And so what I did was I formed a partnership and we produced a small kit car. And we sold a few of them. Didn't make any money, but it did get us visibility, which was crucial. And from that visibility, we got other design commissions, the Porsche Spexter, and things went on from there. With a bit of visibility, things start to happen, and the business became viable.
And was the Spexter really your first real design where you took a car and you put your own personal touch?
Well, the kit car actually was, but the Spexter was a Porsche concept of the future, and it got a lot of publicity, you know, the magazine covers and so on, and actually led directly to Reeves Callaway phoning me up. And
beginning of a nice long collaboration.
Yeah, that was a very long collaboration, which still goes on today, and yeah, it was great because he said, "Paul, I just saw this article." He'd seen a little postage stamp article on the Porsche, and I said to him, "Well, have you seen the latest issue of Motor Trend?" Because it's on the cover. So that kind of sealed the deal.
Perfect timing. Was that a real surprise to have your design on the cover of Motor Trend?
Oh, it was amazing. You know, it was a situation where you're, you know, working away in your little workshop, and you hope that somebody will like what you're doing, but you don't know. You don't know until it's out there, and then when you get that kind of positive response, it's like, phew, this is amazing. And to walk into a magazine store and see it there really was a great feeling.
And then almost overnight with the Motor Trend cover, you started getting attention. And as you mentioned, the Reeves Callaway and others took notice.
Yeah, that was definitely what brought us together, yeah.
So over the years with Reeves, you've designed a number of cars, speedsters, racing cars that have been successful, both Daytona and Le Mans.
Yeah, absolutely. The Callaway cars likes to you know, do equally successful road cars as race cars, and yeah, I think we've done pretty well on both sides of that coin, and like I said, it's still carrying on today, and we're always trying to push the envelope in whatever comes along in the automotive field.
Was the Sledgehammer the first that you collaborated on?
The Sledgehammer was, that was the famous question to Reeves asked me was, can you design a car that goes 250 miles an hour? Well, I can't say I was sure I could, but the answer was, yeah, sure, we'll give it a try.
Yeah, we'll try.
And
the
car was tested on the track at 254 miles an hour.
And that set a record at the time for a
street cars, yeah. And the record stayed, was current until very recently when the Bugatti Veyron, I think, went 2 miles an hour faster, but but it took many more years and many more millions of development dollars to do it.
But you're still working together today?
Yes, absolutely. Yep, we've already started working on the latest iteration of the Corvette, the C7, and there's going to be some more interesting stuff down the road.
Now, you had talked in the documentary about working on negotiating a deal with a larger car manufacturer for what's called a satellite design studio, where they might put a few in major cities around the world, and you at the time were hopeful that might come to fruition.
Yeah. It seemed to me that the satellite design studio is common in the car industry. There's a lot of them in California, Southern California, because it's considered a trend-setting place. And they're in Europe and so on in strategic locations. There's a couple in Barcelona. And it strikes me that Montreal is a creative city. There's a lot of creative ideas come out of it. And also, with the seasons, the 4 seasons should affect the design of the cars that we drive. And so we kind of have that as well, which maybe Southern California doesn't have those as harsh conditions. So long story short, I entered into negotiations with one of the big car companies, and they were all set to set up shop in Montreal, but just corporate decisions and circumstances put an end to it at the last minute. So it was very bittersweet experience, but I think it's still a valid idea, and
potentially maybe for another
I would certainly be
company
interested
down the
to
road.
talk about it with another company. Yeah.
You talk about the harsh conditions at times. Does that impact how you design a car, especially electric cars? You've designed a number of electric vehicles, and has that made it more difficult being in Montreal and trying to design an electric vehicle?
Well, it makes you address reality quicker than if you're in Southern California. It's like, yeah, the battery's running at a low percentage of its full charge. So as any consumer would say, you need something that you're buying a car that has to do the job. So whatever has to take place to make it have the function, that's the bottom line. It's so for sure there are technological limitations on batteries with our winter climate. But there are ways around it, and I think hybrids are a good solution, and so on.
Hybrids and electric cars are becoming more popular, but here in the Northeast, in northern New York, in Quebec, and in our area, it seems that they really haven't caught on.
Yeah, and I think we're going to we're probably going to question the technology. I mean, we've all had batteries dying on us because the temperature is too cold. So maybe we just have an inbred, an inborn questioning of a car that has a gigantic battery.
Can this technology work? Yes.
So if we're a little bit skeptical, then I think we have a reason for it. So. Yeah, it's all this stuff goes into play, and also a consumer who buys a car. Most of us say, okay, I'm going to buy 1, maybe 2 cars, and I have to be able to use them in all circumstances. Yeah. So there's a practical side to the decision.
Do you see the day coming in the near future when they'll become more popular and people will embrace the idea?
I think for sure, yes, but also. The fact that technology never stays still. So I think batteries will, there's a lot of research going on to make the batteries a more reliable and lower cost, and addressing the whole picture. What happens to the batteries in 10 years' time?
Right.
Are they?
And probably a never-ending quest to find cars that will go longer distances, longer on a charge, and probably at speeds comparable to what we're used to now.
You're exactly right. We're very loath to give up convenience, and say if you drive from here to New York City, you plan to fill up maybe one time, and that's a 10-15 minute stop, and we're not going to easily give that up for, say, a 1 hour stop while the battery's being recharged.
Right. Although we do see more charging stations certainly across New York now.
Yeah, it's all going in the right direction, and I'm sure one day it will hit a critical mass, but I don't think we're quite there yet. Like you say, in the more northern climes, I think.
And cost is still a bit of a factor for some folks. They're still that much pricier than many of the standard models.
Although there are like some subsidies that are available that make it much more attractive, which is fine. I think in this interim period, I think that's the kind of approach that's required.
One of the other cool vehicles that you designed was the T-Rex, the super trike. And how's that caught on?
Well, when it first came out, I was present at the Montreal Car Show, and the press kind of looked at it like une bébelle, which means a gizmo. Not a serious thing. Now, fast forward a couple of decades, three-wheelers have just been on the up and up.
We're seeing more and more
of them, and larger companies are taking them very seriously. Most recently, Polaris has just jumped in the three-wheeled market. Bombardier's in it. And so the T-Rex has got its niche because the configuration of the three-wheelers are different. And I think it still fascinates people when they see it. It stops people in their tracks, and it's got that longevity, which I love. I love to see that, and that it still gets attention. It still hasn't become just another vehicle.
And is that flattering to you as a designer when all of a sudden what you've made popular catches on with some of the larger manufacturers, and you suddenly see them on the road everywhere?
I think it's nice for the T-Rex, the Campagna company, because it shows that I think they were like spearheading an area which they were ahead of their time on. And so I love that.
Is that one of your most successful designs as far as popularity? And
well, it's produced in low volume. It's sort of like if you compare, a Ferrari to a Chevrolet. It's that kind of, it's a quite a low volume, exotic vehicle.
Which probably is what the owners like about it.
Absolutely.
It's a one of a kind in many ways.
And it's kind of got a cult following. I mean, with my own daughters, I think the time I finally impressed them was when they saw the T-Rex was owned by a rapper, and it was his favorite vehicle. So I thought, well, that's one way to get their attention.
I guess so.
To get some
well, that's nice, Dad. You create a car that goes 254 miles per hour, but the rapper enjoys has one of the T-Rexes.
Yeah, he's so it's kind of got that niche market which attracts some pretty interesting people.
Rapper Justin Bieber, others.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Now, you mentioned the Montreal International Auto Show. That's coming up over the next several days, and that must be a huge event for you every year.
Well, it sometimes is a bigger event than others. I've had my vehicles on display there as a special attraction, and that was really a lovely occasion. And of course, I go every year just to, see what's new, and always enjoy going. It's a good event.
And you mentioned one year when you were being showcased was the year that it was held at the Big O at the Olympic Stadium, and they had the misfortune of the infamous roof collapse.
Yeah, that was when there was a big snowstorm, and right after the snow it rained, so the weight on the roof just became incredible, and the roof burst. And I was supposed to have my special attraction that year, so we sent all the vehicles back to their rightful owners, and then they all came back the next year, and it was repeated.
A memorable year.
Yeah.
And now, since then, safely indoors in a location where hopefully that won't
the Palais
happen
de Congrès is it's got a solid roof.
And it is a great event. It brings people from around North America every year, hundreds of futuristic and new styles and designs on display.
Yeah, and it's a major international car show, and I know the people of Montreal and Quebec in general just love to. It's very, very well attended, very popular.
And a lot of people probably wonder, is it hard to be a car designer in Montreal? Does it make it tough?
It's it's funny if people ask me, and many people have, like, how do I get into the business? There's this kind of the standard way to get in. Attend a specialized car design course, but they generally tend to be in more arts-related schools like Pasadena Art Center, the Royal College of Art in London, and that's where the car companies really go to pluck out their top talent. The way I went was not conventional, and so I can't, with a clear conscience say, go this way and then work your way into the sort of the creative side, because it's much higher risk. And but the rewards, I have to say that one of the key things about the work I do and the approach is that I often go into a company and I'll often have to work with the engineers, because they have an engineering department established, but they don't have, say, a design department permanently employed. So I go in as the designer and often confront reluctant engineers. Say, oh, we have to work with this guy. When they find out I'm actually an engineer, they go, wow, we can work with this guy. We speak the same language, right. And that really sets a tone for a great collaboration, great communication, and that is really one of the great, sort of one of the secret recipe of having a successful project on your hands.
You can talk their language.
Oh, yeah.
And you can answer those questions that always have to be answered. When you have a designer who's thinking style, performance,
right.
They always meet the engineers who say, can it be done?
Yeah, or how will we do that? And so you address those problems, you nip the problems in the bud, and that instead of doing, fantasizing too much and then having somebody say, well, that ain't gonna work. You can sort of condense the whole process. And I do think that for the bigger car companies, I think that that's an area that they could probably get to market quicker on by reducing the time that way, because the chasm between designers and engineers, or stylists and engineers, there really is a difference, and it's only positive when those walls are broken down.
Through the years, was there a designer who you looked to, and you were a mentor or someone who just inspired you?
Sure. When I was at school, it was Giorgetto Giugiaro, who was head of Ital Design. He was designing amazing Lotus cars, Alfa Romeo, VW Golf. He designed the original VW Golf, Scirocco. And he was the man, and I admired him immensely. And I've had the fortune of meeting him on 3 occasions and spending an afternoon with him, discussing car design, and it was like meeting my idol, and it was very inspiring.
And I know for an artist, it's tough to be asked this, but do you have a favorite out of your creations, out of your designs, out of your vehicles? Is there one that you're the proudest of, or that you love the most, or is it impossible to pick one?
Well, there's two things that come to mind: Callaway cars and the T-Rex. Callaway cars, because I had this terrific opportunity to grow the design with a company over a couple of decades, and that allows to create a family of designs and so on. And that is really special. You know, like Porsches look like Porsches, and you know, certain car companies keep to it. And we've been able to establish that at Callaway. And of course the T-Rex is just because it was so out there, so wild, and it's still alive and kicking today. You know, it's definitely one of my favorites, yeah.
It's got that cool factor.
It still does after all these years.
And as you mentioned with Reeves Callaway, the great thing about that collaboration is he really lets you do your work. It was where he said, design me these cars and have at it.
Yeah, yeah. It's one of the great things to be in this business is to have people actually listen to what you're saying and you know, realize that you've gone through the process of like amassing all the information that you can, getting everybody involved, asking everybody that has something to contribute, get their input, get them involved, and then try to make the right decisions, the best decisions that you can with the information. That's the formula that works for me. Yeah.
Oil prices are dropping a little, so there may not be quite the demand for more energy efficient cars that get better mileage. But as we head into the next decade and the next few decades, do you foresee the design of automobiles changing dramatically, or other than maybe the push to hybrid and electric cars, do you see anything dramatically changing?
Yeah, and from my sphere of interest, say, is the car body design. And so, you know, the battery and engine technology is, say, less of what I'm going to be involved in. But the one area where I am involved with and can, you know, bring something to the table, and it's often something that's left on the table, is aerodynamics. Mm-hmm. And, you know, for sure, I think we've been through the phase, maybe gone a little bit past the phase where, you know, everybody likes their 4x4 trucks and, you know, but with very, very massive front ends and not that aerodynamic. And I think the challenge as a designer would be to maintain that kind of character, you know, the punch, the impact of a design that it needs, say in the pickup truck market or whatever, but actually improve the aerodynamics, because that is fuel economy at no cost. It doesn't cost anything more to create an aerodynamic design than it does a non-aerodynamic. So I think there's something being left on the table there that we'll see. I mean, crossovers, the phenomenon of crossovers popularity is a step in that direction, and you're starting to see some much more aerodynamic shapes out there.
And even though we have seen gas prices drop pretty dramatically over the past several months, still there is talk that the government will get to the point where they're going to demand that the automakers increase their mileage pretty significantly. And so in the future, that may still be an issue where better aerodynamics will be demanded.
It'll be, there won't be any choice. That will have to be addressed and brought in part of the formula. But I'm hoping that because gas prices are dropping, I hope that there's no letting off. I think we need to continue pushing for increased fuel mileage. I think that's the only responsible direction to go in. Yeah.
So Paul Deutschman, thank you very much for taking the time to come in and talk with us. We appreciate it.
It was all my pleasure, and thank you very much for having me.